Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to another Humpday Hangout here with Fire Engineering. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my good buddy and his co-host, Assistant Chief Terry McGrath, and we've got a great lineup for you today. We're joined by a very close friend of ours, a great guy, Captain Mike Gagliano with the Seattle Fire Department, and we're trying to get hooked up here with a couple more of our friends, our good buds, especially with the boss, Chief Bobby Halton, and we're going to be talking today about something that's very close and dear to us, and something that we're kind of hoping really takes off when it comes to how we take care of the people we're supposed to take care of. And we'll just talk specifically at high rises, but also our own people when it comes to their safety, being able to breathe safely and replenish their air, and ultimately be better for those that we said we're supposed to be protecting. And that's through the great folks at RescueAir. Their website's rescueair.com, and I'm actually going to throw this. Terry, how you doing? Real quick, Terry, have you been able to talk to anybody from Little Elm today? I got to visit with them a little bit this morning.
No, I didn't. I didn't want to impose, and I know their world is kind of upside down right now. So I figured the best thing to do is to let them work on what they need to work on, and obviously they know if they need the help or assistance, we're here. But I haven't talked to anybody.
Well, for our viewers today, Detective Sergeant Jerry Walker from the Little Elm, Texas Police Department. Little Elm's on the northeast corner of Lake Louisville, very close to all of our departments here. Great group of police officers and firefighters. He was shot and killed yesterday. I'll just say it, by another coward. They ended up with a standoff, four little kids at home. So just please keep the Little Elm Police Department, as we do all our law enforcement officers, our brothers and sisters in blue, in your thoughts and prayers. Something's got to change. We got to figure out how to protect them better. But very sad day in Little Elm, Texas. So please keep again them in your thoughts and prayers. On a lighter note, Mikey and Terry in Orlando, they caught the guy that shot the deputy down there, and I don't know if you caught. I think one of the best parts about the arrest, Mike and Terry, was the handcuffs they used to handcuff him were the handcuffs of the fallen deputy, the female deputy. And I thought, you know what? I'm saying, not a better way. They go, here you go, you son of a bitch.
That's right.
We're cuffing you with the cuffs of the officer you killed. So anyway, thoughts and prayers to our law enforcement folks. Hey, Mike, well, Bobby and them are out in Glendale. We're trying to get this all hooked up so we do some good demonstrations. Let's talk about RescueAir. I know you're very passionate about it. I know I am, and we've got some other good guys that are behind it. But this is like freaking incredible for the life safety and for the operations of firefighters, isn't it?
Yeah, Rick, I agree. One of the things that is really critical, and I think it's kind of interesting. We're having Wi-Fi problems, right? We're having Wi-Fi. That's technology in the world of the fire service. And here's what I would equate it to. As we get talking about firefighter air replenishment, and just kind of in a nutshell, and hopefully they're going to get to show it to you. If you think of what a water standpipe is, you put water in down at the bottom, you get water at whatever level you need it within big structures. That's what firefighter air replenishment systems are. It's an air standpipe. And instead of having to rely on, in this case, the elevator, which is a technology that was never designed to do this big movement of bodies and equipment in a fast, quick way. It was never designed to do that. Just like relying on the Wi-Fi at the Arizona Training Tower, which may work or it may not, that's what we're doing when we're relying on elevators to get our air up to floor 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever it is. And if it works, man, it works out okay. It's still very late stage air. But if it doesn't work, and we do know that, right? We know, my truck company goes to stalled elevators every week. Every week we're in stalled elevators and the buildings aren't even on fire. It's just the normal, day-to-day of utilizing that elevator, that technology. It's not intended for the robust stuff it has to do. The firefighter air replenishment system, Rick, all it does is take air from the lower floor, either from the mobile air unit or the standpipe system, the cascade system that's in the thing, and it sends it up to every available floor in the structure. So you're not worried about the elevators stalling. You can use the stairs or the elevators if they work. You can use those for your other equipment, for your bodies. But the minute the firefighters go in those stairwells, whether they hit smoke in the stairwell or whether they get up on floor 12, do their work, then run out. Now what do? You know, you're waiting for either bottles to come up in the elevators or try to get them up the stairwells. When they run out, they go out into the stairwell and they hook up the air. Buddy, it is the no-brainer of the century.
Well, Mikey, Terry and I were talking about this a little while back about this concept going, I don't know, I just wholly, you know what, I'm like, you know, for those that have done high rises, and I was fortunate to receive some of the best high rise training I've ever had in my life through a guy named Chief Eddie Enright in Chicago, absolute high rise guru. You know, he was a captain on a 98 engine. His dad, grandpa, and great grandpa. That's the firehouse next to the John Hancock building, 95 floors. That's the firehouse that looks like the water tower in Chicago, the stained glass. He was the only one that pumped to the 95th floor years ago when the busboy started the fire and shut the pump down. And he's just, and we used to talk about this, running bottles up to the support floor, running bottles, you know, what can we do to cut down on the pack muling we have to do? Guys aren't using the elevators, you know, some don't, some departments
Hey guys,
choose
can
not
you hear
to.
us?
We've got you, Bobby, but you're froze up.
Okay, well, hang on. I'm going to come back here in a second.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, guys?
We got you, just froze up, buddy.
We're there. Can you hear us?
We're all
Yeah.
good. I can hear you and I have a visual, Bobby.
There you go. Well, we're back here. We're in Glendale, Arizona. We are looking at the RescueAir system, and this is what's called a firefighter air replenishment system. What we're going to do today is we've got our friends from Glendale. We're going to walk through the 6 components of the system.
We lost you again, Bobby. Well, Mikey, as we get Bobby back, hopefully we won't be back and forth, but you know what I'm saying? And you do high rise. You're a captain in Seattle, huge department, busy-ass department. You do it for real. There are Facebook firefighters out there pretend that they are. You do it. You're out there leading the guys. And that's always been, it's like over the years, guys loaded more crap into their high-rise pack bags and all. And we made this harder and harder for guys to get to the support floor, then to the floor, then the fire floor. And then it's like as soon as we do, we're out of air, or we need to fill bottles, or we got to get back downstairs. What an incredible concept to have this where, and I guess and Terry, I think you and I were talking about this as well, about explain, Mike, okay, the RescueAir comes in. If I remember, there's a couple different systems. You can either bring and plug in somewhere, or can an individual high-rise owner or city install a cascade system that is something that is stored on site? Like we try to get different warehouses, places to keep foam, you know, so we're not toting all this foam around. Walk us through what it takes. I own a high-rise, and you're going to make life easier for the firefighters that respond to my high-rise building when it comes to replenishing air. And for our listeners, if you don't know it, you've been sleeping under a rock, but Mike and 3 of his good buddies wrote one of the best air management book through fire engineering books and videos. If you don't have it, you need to get it. Incredible book about air management, not just this, but everything to do with an SCBA, yourself, and how much. Anyway, great book. Mike
Thanks,
teaches
buddy.
that among other things. Well, it is. We bought it for all our place. I know Terry's got in Louisville, but walk me through. Terry and I bought it. Listen, Terry and I, because Terry's got lots of money, we bought this high rise. We bought this high rise. Explain to me how this. Give me my options, and what do we do?
Yeah, you bet. You know, unfortunately, the only broke guy on the whole
All
podcast
right.
is me.
Are we back now?
Hey, there he is.
Are we back?
We got
Can you
your
hear me, guys?
voice, no picture.
Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you, buddy.
No,
Yeah,
Oh,
see?
good. Listen,
no camera.
no camera. What the hell? No camera. This is like the day from hell.
What do you think we need to do on that?
I'm blaming it all on Mike Gallagher.
Oh,
How about now?
you, Mikey.
Now?
How about
Yeah.
now?
Camera.
Yes.
All right, there we are. We're back. Come on, get in here.
Sorry.
All right, you won't believe it. We've got 4 people holding. We got 2 guys with tin foil wrapped around their heads. And they're holding rabbit ears up. So we're making this work. We're in Glendale, Arizona, where they have not heard of the internet yet. I'm just we're making it work. Are we still good? Are we still good?
You're still good.
Yes.
We're good. Okay. Let's cook. Yeah. All right. This is what we're gonna do.
Talk slowly.
Where are the guys I told everything was going to go to hell? Where are they? I told you, hey, there they are. They're waving at me. Hey, you're right.
Talk
Okay, so
slowly.
what we're doing,
Slow, he said talk slowly.
talk slowly. So the people in Texas can understand. So here we go. We're going to be talking about firefighter air replenishment systems. There's 6 components we want to show you today. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but just to show you how easy these systems are. What we want to talk about today is when we're talking about large buildings, high-rise buildings, for us in the fire service. In other words, pumping bottles, getting bottles, staging bottles, and they also cause a secondary problem. We talk about people trying to evacuate because we're basically filling up a stairwell. So there's a lot of issues with getting air, and there's even bigger issues with running out of air. We all understand you have to bring water to a fire, but now we can bring air into the building with us without having to carry it. They've been kind enough to let us look at their system. It's called RescueAir. Huge supporter of fire engineering, huge supporter of FDIC. So we're going to run a few minutes long in today's Humpday Hangout so we can cover this. We had some technical difficulties. I'm going to blame them all on Galliano, just because he's an easy scapegoat. He's my official redheaded stepchild. So the first thing to think about is how do we get air to the building? Well, the buildings can have this retrofitted, really easy to do, and then they have a panel on the outside of the building, just like you'd have any other connection. You can also have a system that sets up, so say you had an office complex or something where you're going to do multiple buildings, and you wanted one central control, you can have like a pillbox, if you will.
A remote monument.
Remote monument where you can do air. But this one's attached to the building. We're here courtesy of Chief Terry Garrison with the Glendale Fire Department. This is an incredible facility that Grin, Arizona stopped by. But this is basically what this panel looks like. I'm going to ask my camera lady to just take a look behind us here. And this is the utility truck from the Glendale Fire Department where they would fill up any air, at any fire and fill up bottles. They've got a 100-foot connection. Clyde's going to pull that connection for us now if he stops trying to make time with the young ladies. And there you go. And he's going to come over here. And while Clyde's pulling the connection, he's going to come back over here. We're going to tell you a little bit about the panel. We're going to start off. Gary, Tony, what are we looking at here? And you can, that actually has a cord, so you don't have to drag her with you. You can come right up here and take a look at the panel. How are we doing on that? Yeah, just flip that thing here so I can see it. Mike, how's that panel look? Is that a good view?
Looks good.
Mike, Galliano?
Looks good.
Okay. So basically what we're looking at is just like you'd see on the truck. Clyde's going to come in here with the connection. Straightforward. Later that same day. How you like that one, huh? So come back over, Tony.
You bet.
So Clyde's basically, it's that quick. So 100-foot line from the utility truck, which is ample distance from your setbacks and everything else. So now Clyde's actually turned the system on. And if you come in a little bit closer for me, Aaron, appreciate that. We'll just see the gauges move here real quick.
As soon as I turn the air on.
All right, go turn the air on. Clyde's going to go turn the air on. Real simple open-close valve. Here's your intake. Here's your current pressure. They've got a couple of bottles on the other wall. We'll look at that in a minute. Here's your CO. Here's your any kind of moisture reading. It's pretty straightforward stuff, just like you'd see on your air supply system at your fire station. So we're going to light this up. This is a great system. This is pretty much foolproof.
Yeah, the connection here, Bob, is a CGA 347.
Okay.
It's a male connection, just like on the SCBA cylinder.
Uh-huh.
And all mobile other trucks have the female SCBA connection here. There's a CGA 347 female. Yep, there's our mobile air
Here
unit.
comes our air. So it's that simple to make the connection. So you've got your external supply. You've got there are actually 2 bottles on the other side that are holding some air. But this is an external supply, so you can keep going. We can keep filling this up for as long as we're at the particular event, whether it's hazmat, whether it's a working fire. So we're going to take a walk inside, and hopefully we don't lose the connection. So keep talking to us. Make funny hand signs, Mike, because I can see Mike. I can't see the rest of you.
Hey, Rick. So while
Pretty
they're
straightforward
moving,
stuff. That's your-
you asked about the components.
Are we still okay, Mike?
Right.
Yeah, you're good.
So I want to keep the book outside if we can. I want to keep that portable Wi-Fi with us as best we can. Come on in, guys. Well, we're gonna take you to the second floor, right? So Gary, come on in. Good. All right. I lost my camera lady. I got it. There you go. There. All right. Hey guys, I don't know how the light's going to be on this because we didn't try this camera. So how's that look, guys?
Looks good.
Mike, how's it look?
Looks fine.
All right, come on in, Gary. Come on in, Tony. And again, thank you to the good folks at Glendale. So we're inside the building right now. Start off with that. We're inside the building right now. We don't need them yet. We're inside the building right now, and we're looking at the actual wall unit. Same thing we had outside, CO, H2O. Here's the back. Here's the pressure.
Pressure here.
Oh, there we go, pressure.
Okay.
So we're at 47. What are we looking at?
About 4,700.
4,700.
Coming in from the mobile air unit.
Okay, so we're pressurizing the system right now. And look at how simple this piping is. Stay with me, brother. That's pretty straightforward stuff. If you want to get a retrofit done on a building, massive pipes like a standpipe. Remember our standpipes, so we'll take a look at a standpipe, is a pipe. This is a pretty, what do you think that, Gary? What do you think that diameter is? 5/8?
Look at those guys, half-inch.
Half-inch. Mile diameter. Pretty interesting system. Mike, you've got these up in Seattle, right?
We don't have them in Seattle, fingers crossed, but they're putting them in Renton just down the road from us. And, you know, if God loves us, we'll get them in Seattle, brother, and I think he does. So
I know God loves you. I don't know about the rest of Seattle. I'm going to go out on a limb there. So what we got right here. So this is we got the fill panel on the other side. We looked at that. This is the
air monitoring system. That structure. It's monitoring the entire system 24/7 for CO, moisture, and pressure.
And I want to point out that we only have 2 cylinders here. The normal cascade system, the building has
10 to 12 for a storage system.
Yeah, the point is, you have air in the system as soon as you enter the building, and enough to fill up to 200 cylinders. Truck hooks in
With an air storage. This is
Yes.
just monitoring on that.
Yeah, and if you're going to fill 200 cylinders, that's a big day.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of air. You know, that's a lot of air. And it's just like any other air system. You're going to get it checked quarterly, just like you do with your fill stations at the fire station. So, and there isn't a whole lot of maintenance here because there's not a lot of mechanical or moving parts. It's basically a pressurized air system. But you do want to have it checked, just like we do with all of our other air holding systems. Anything else you want to talk about in here before we go to the second floor?
I think monitoring would be the only thing, that this air monitoring system is connected to the fire alarm panel, supervisory signal.
That's right.
If the moisture, CO, or pressure goes outside of acceptable range, you're going to get a supervisory signal there. This particular system is also set up with a strobe and a horn. So you're going to get an audible and a light alarm if any of those go outside the readings. I think we could ask Deputy Chief Montgomery if it's happened in the last 8 years here, and the answer is no, it's never happened. You ever had a low pressure warning?
No problems.
I don't know what we've had this in 8 years or
It's going on 5.
5. Okay, getting older than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not just the high-rise application. I think the thing to keep in the back of our minds all the time, we start talking about these large malls. The other night we were out here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're here at the stadium. A mall kind of set up there where getting our apparatus in is going to be a real issue, and moving air bottles is going to be a real issue. And some of these cavernous buildings that we're building today, because we can, these systems are the answer for our air supply problems. They really are. So don't just think high-rise while we're having this conversation. Think your malls, think of your subway stations, think of anything below grade, or your airports, any of these large areas that we're going to have to go into and search for life, large amounts of air.
I think we have one of the Intel factory in East Valley.
You do? Yeah, Intel chip manufacturing, large horizontal.
So why don't we take a trip up? We got somebody with us on, just a quick guest before we go up to the second floor, just because I'm worried about connectivity. And I apologize for our delays getting on. Jimmy from Australia, he's a station officer, right? So he's actually looking at the system for Australia, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a great solution to some of the potential problems in Australia. So,
not that you don't have enough problems in Australia.
well, if you can understand.
Speak English. So, great guy. Jimmy's going to be visiting for a while here in the States. He's working on a scholarship from the Australian government to take a look at this system for their buildings. So, this is moving to the fire service worldwide pretty fast. And to me, it's duh. I mean, really, it's not a big leap of faith to me to adopt something like this. This just makes good common sense. So what we're going to do now, we got the Glendale guys, who I apologize if I lose connectivity. Mike and team will cover for us. So they'll keep the conversation going. So hopefully we can maintain connected. I want you guys to see how easy it is to fill a cylinder on the backs of these firefighters. And we'll talk about that when we get to the rest of the hangout. So let's go to the second floor. A little talk here, a little walk. Come on, fellas. Right out of Central Casting, they brought Samson and Delilah here. So. Let me go. On the second floor. Keep going, talking heads. Somebody, Tony, keep talking for me here. Gary, keep talking.
Right. So one of the first advantages of the air system in a high-rise building is that first wave of resources doesn't have to be committed to shuttling bottles in. So what you have is a built-in system ready to go as soon as they enter the building. What that does for the incident commander and logistics hurts people that were manually carrying bottles, takes them away from that obligation and puts them into the firefight. So right off the bat, you've got additional personnel available to do a firefight.
Sound is good, Gary.
Okay, now we're opening up the briefing.
So Rick, I don't know if we're going to get them back, but let me tell you what you're looking at there. As the chief was trying to explain, you imagine going to a high-rise fire. Rick, you've been to plenty. You know, I've been in your classes. I heard you mention the chief that mentored you on high-rise, you know, and how highly you spoke of him. Those are not easy fires. They're labor-intensive. The fire just doesn't wait for you as you're trying to figure out, you know, number one, where it is, how you're going to get the initial response, either up the stairs or up through the elevators. The whole time the fire's not waiting for you. And the gases are expanding and the smoke is moving and the fire's growing and people are in trouble and they need help. If we had to carry buckets of water up the stairs or buckets of water in elevators in the bucket brigade, we'd be screwed because it just is late stage water, and that's why we have water standpipes. What you see here is an answer to what all of us have recognized, that after our first bottle, particularly if there's any kind of smoke in the stairwell or the lobby, which we're seeing all the time now with reverse stack and the stuff that are burning, not only are we behind the curve from the get-go with manpower, now we're trying to refill, trying to figure out how to get this air to floor 5, 8, 10, 12, and we burn through that first bottle, and now what? Now we're up there with no bottle. It's difficult to get the bottles up there, and even if we have the bottles up there, you are obligated to go off of air, swap that bottle out, and there's a delay in the firefight, especially in the early stages for most departments where it ain't like you got 40, 50 guys up there to fight the fire. You got your first 1, 2, 3 crews, right? I mean, that's the reality. What you saw in the stairwell there, Rick, and it's a game changer. It's what got me. That one component is really what got me to get on board and say, as somebody who believes in air management and good aggressive fire tactics, this should be mandated in every structure 4 stories and above. That's my belief. That panel that you saw, and if we don't get video up, Rick, I have one here. I'll show you what it looks like.
Okay.
You go to the fire. You're going up the stairs or you're going in the elevator. You're fighting fire on your initial cylinder, 30-minute cylinder, 45-minute cylinder, whatever it is. You get your 15 to 20 minutes of work time, which going upstairs, you're going to burn it fast. Pumping a lot of equipment and moving, you're going to burn that air fast. You get finished with that bottle, the initial cruise, you go back out to the stairwell. You do not have to take your face piece off. You don't have to take your mask off. You click in just like you would to a transfill, just like you're going to a firefighter with your transfill hose or with a rack. You click into that panel. A minute later, your bottle's refilled and you're ready to go again. Absolutely transforms the operation as far as air management, Rick.
Well, and not everybody, and Terry, I was going to grab you for a second here. You know, you're pretty lucky where Terry's at, Mike. Louisville's got a ton of companies and people on top of each other, so on and so forth. A lot of folks around that area and everything else. But you said something key before. You said a lot of people we're not falling all over each other like New York City. God bless them, but they've got, you know, hundreds of companies and so on and so forth. And what I wanted to key in on was, and Terry, you know, because here at Trophy Club we have great guys. You got them great there. There's only so much you can do, and there's nothing more frustrating than being at any fire and gaining ground, and then you go, crap, I got to get out because of my air. And every foot you worked your way in, you fought hard. You almost, it's like, sometimes it's like running up the down escalator. You know, as soon as you stop and pause, you lose 8 feet. And I can't imagine, especially in high rises, they're so labor intensive, like you said, Mike. It takes 3 times as many people usually, just in people, to do what you've got to do. And the air management part of it's
so by our protocols and our SOPs, they need 220, 2,000. 2,000.
Guys, we're back.
We got you.
Back right now.
Good. So, Sean, can you bring Sean on that wall? All right. So did you see that quick fill? We got the guys set back up. We still connected, Mike? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
So give me a little better shot.
Camera angle. We need to drop it just a little, please. There we go.
That better, Shannon?
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. So we're going to do the refill again just so you can see it. Here are the guys. You see them pulling the, opening the system up. And basically, he's pulling off his quick connect. This is just that simple. Watch how fast he can put this in. This is pretty amazing. And here we go. We didn't know if that came through before, but we just wanted to fill it back up again. You seeing this?
Absolutely.
We're still filming. We're still live. We're still doing great, guys. This is beautiful.
And we can top off in 2 minutes time.
So 2 minutes to top off a cylinder. Pretty simple stuff.
About 30 seconds.
The case that you see with the hoses, that can be kept locked. So you don't have to worry about people tampering with it. Really nice system. Really nice system. Right there on the wall. You can have one on every floor, every other floor. You can have them anywhere in a building where you need to have them.
Bobby, how long is the cord?
Plus of the system is imagine you're assigned.
Hey guys, show them how long the cord is. Pull the cord all the way out. It's a pretty good distance, Ricky. You could have four firefighters right in there with no problem.
6 foot cord.
Okay, gotcha.
6 foot is a typical.
Perfect.
Beautiful stuff. Hey, we're going to take it outside and start the hangout. So come with us, kids.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Love it, man. All right, beautiful. So we're back, and we are, guys, grab your seats. Hey, so. Make sure we don't lose power. Check your view. All right.
Well, that was a view we didn't
Mikey,
need.
Mike, there's got to be a satellite somewhere down there, you know.
There an
There's
area.
got to be a satellite. There's got to be a satellite over in Arizona somewhere.
How does that look,
Hey,
guys?
hey, can you still hear us, fellas?
We got you.
You look great.
We can't hear them, so turn the book so we can hear them. We look great. We can hear you. Okay, so there's basically 6 components to the system. Pretty straightforward stuff. You got your external air supply. You got that internal system that Gary talked about that holds up to 200 bottles worth of air, the average system, right? Which is pretty amazing. And then you've got basically your piping, and your plumbing, and your air mine, and then your fill stations, which is that's the whole shebang.
That's it. 2 different types of fills. You have the emergency fill panel, which you just saw here, widely used in the Glendale, Phoenix metro area, and then the rupture containment fill station, which is again split and used in many other areas as well. Pick up this image here, but we can do it a little bit later here.
Well, Bobby,
Everybody knows what last. I mean, that's what we all do. Right. So you can do it the traditional way, or you can fill up on your back. It's not that big a deal. So.
well, Bobby, let's go backwards here. Let's go backwards for a second, Bobby. And Mikey had brought up something a while back when we were talking about NFPA standards, which I'm sure is a great question for people regarding the installation and all that stuff. Everything we try to do is NFPA. And I don't know if, Mikey, if there's something for you, talk about, what I'm saying, where people can find that, because it's already in the standard. It's just a matter of them, if I remember right, adopting that particular appendix, right? And I'll look at Mike Gagliano.
Right. NFPA or the ICC, just look the book over here. The camera cord's long enough. We can pull the book over so we can hear better. But when you talk about the ICC or the NFPA, you can just the book and just stretch the camera. There you go. Yeah, we can hear you guys a little better. Can you still see us all? We still get it?
We got you. We got you.
Yeah, so we're talking about like the ICC and the NFPA. It's pretty. The system's already in it. It's already in the code.
Yeah, I mean, these systems are all in accordance with NFPA 1989 standards.
Right. So when you put one in, it's just the area having jurisdiction. So say you want to put it in Bipperville or Bopperville, all you have to do is go to the local council meeting and ask that to adopt it as part of the code. And then, buildings will be fitted, or future buildings would have them put into it. So when you,
and that was one of the first questions, Bobby, I had when Mike and I were talking about this a while ago. And Mike brought, we were talking about this, and I was like, whenever you go to talk to them, it's the first thing they want to know is, all right, is it meet the standard? You know where I'm going. And first and foremost, very foundation, boom, that's done. It's already there, so they don't have to worry about doing something like we have people teaching classes that don't meet a standard. We have people doing all kinds of things. This actually is there already. So I, as a fire chief or as a building owner, don't have to worry about it because it's already in the standard.
Yeah, it's already in the standard. I think when we take a look at it, to me, it's basically a no-brainer. And the ability to refill our bottles without having to create a daisy chain of men and women, bringing them up and bringing them down. Because remember, it's a two-way process. You use them up, you got to take them back outside, refill them, bring them up. It's a pretty big deal when you think about it. And there's even, when you think about some of the redundant systems that we have, where we have apparatus dedicated to just bringing bottles to the fire. That's another person we can free up from the fire ground. That's another apparatus we can free up from other duties. It just seems to be a huge amount of opportunity. And so the Phoenix area, the Glendale area, we've been working with it for a while, Gary. What are some of the benefits that you guys have seen working with this?
Well, I think the two most obvious is one, you immediately have additional resources committed to combating the fire that otherwise would have been all the bottles up and down. The other is the convenience of the system and the reliability of the system. Imagine being assigned some floors above the search. If with this system in place, depending on your rehab needs, you could go completely across one floor into the other stairwell, pop off your bottle, go up to the next floor, go across on your search, and continue that until you really need a rehab operation. Secondly, if you're up on a fire floor or the floors above the fire and you're running out of air, it could be a long ways down a stage. Well, so you're going to be full of some level of smoke along the way, if not a lot of smoke, and you just go to a refill station on your way down and get topped off, and you're safe. So it's a remarkable system, and it's surprising that for more than 100 years we've mandated standpipes in buildings to bring water to the upper floors, and now we're just now getting to the point of bringing air up to the floors. And it's a very essential component to the firefight, and in my opinion, every building should have it, just as they have standpipes.
Hey, Bobby, I don't know if anybody there, maybe RescueAir, do we have a sense of what the adoption of this technology or this the adoption, and especially, we're in a boom of a lot of construction. I know we are in the Dallas area. So how fast are we seeing these systems rolling out?
Well, it's starting to pick up now since the FARS was included in the 2015 International Fire Code, which just comes out in its cycle, its natural adoption and then implementation cycle just now. When you talk about Dallas, I know that Plano Fire Code, which is right there next to Dallas, and I believe Frisco may have done the same, and several other suburban cities around the Dallas area. But the adoption is now picking up because of the availability of it in the International Fire Code.
Yeah, and I could say for the Phoenix metro area, I think there's 54 buildings now with the system in both mid-rise as well as high-rise. And some of those are retrofits, and the cost of doing a retrofit is how much of a percentage of the building?
5%.
Less.
And last night, the Renaissance Hotel that we stayed in had a system. And right there on the front door when you walk in, shows you RescueAir. one of the things I was thinking about, and if you've got questions, you're out there and you're still tuned in after our electronic issues, which were all mine. So, it was funny because I predicted it to some of the Glendale firefighters. I said, you watch, everything was perfect. The minute we go live, the Galliano factor. So, blame it all on Mike. Blame it all on Mike. So, you can ask us any question you want. Just do hashtag FETalk on Twitter. And I've got my Twitter feed up. So if you shoot us a question, that's hashtag FETalk. If you got a question about, hey, how would this work in my system? The thing I was thinking about was when, we look at a lot of Mayday issues. We look at a lot of firefighters coming out. One of the big problems we've always had with Mayday issues, the first thing is if you're trying to get the WIP team or the FAST team or whatever you call them in your local jurisdiction, the firefighter that's down, bottles that bring spare air. But generally, the folks that get to somebody who's down are the folks that will fight the fire in that general proximity. So if you send engine 2 and engine 3 in, hump a hose, and somebody from engine 2 goes down, engine 3 are going to be the people that get to them first. And that hesitation with bunny breathing is always, well, now you got 2 folks that are low on air. But with this system, it would just be, hey, I'm going to give you my air, to take myself enough air to get to a stairwell or get someplace where I know there's a RescueAir system or a firefighter replenishment system, tap off my bottle, and we'll move back to business. And I wonder if the evolution of this going forward might be, air cords that would be available in the WIP pack that you could run 100 feet or whatever just to save you that, to save you that travel distance or something, just to run some, some postulating stuff out into the future, because you always got to think about what's the next part of it look like.
That's a good point, Bobby. So we've already started developing where you actually could, from the emergency control panel, along the actual fire hose, and kick that in as far as fire was concerned.
Right, so that brings to another point of multiple uses for the system. And as Tony was about to describe, we're at an age where terrorism can happen in any high-rise. And you can imagine an improvised device detonating in a building. We have flats that need pneumatic. You can plug into your system with an extended hose and operate your pneumatic tools. The other points we want to make is we talk about high-rise, and as Bobby mentioned early on, this system can be installed in almost thousands of buildings. Large warehouses with pedestals throughout the building that has an alarm and a strobe light that you could easily find. Tunnels, train tunnels, or train bus stations that are underground, and now even into marine and ship.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we've designed systems for sports arenas, for tunnels and high rises, and the large horizontal structures as well. So it's being implemented in all those structures.
I remember when I was up in Seattle when we did that research on rig teams, we quickly discovered that rapid intervention isn't very rapid.
Go ahead, Ricky, you had a question?
Well, I guess my question is, when it comes to, I know, and again, Mike and I talked about this offline a while back, but you get this system installed. Talk us through inspections of the system. I know a lot of people get asked about, moisture, just like you would your cascade system or whatever, your airflow system back in your firehouse. Who's checking it, who's inspecting it, and then, any maintenance issues or whatever. Like I said, different questions that are going to pop up for people.
Yeah, so we were talking about that, and we're looking at the system. When we talk about our air supply systems, like every firefighter knows, you go through boot school, and you're taught that the system gets checked quarterly, and then every 18 months there's almost a tear down kind of check that it has to go through. Different. And just like on a job, New Mexico, you're working in New York, you're working in Florida or California or anywhere else. Well, maybe not California, but they also check for fairy dust and other stuff. I'm just kidding. Just like any place else, there are companies that do that. So it's all outsourced, basically, because you never want to have the fox watching the hen house, because then you could have people who say, oh, yeah, it was fine. So it's basically contracted out, and that's how it works. Just about it. Well, that's how it works everywhere I've ever been. The military may be the one exception to doing inspections on site for their air systems, but civilian use and fire service in that context, we always outsource it. So just like you'd hire a company to come in and do the fire stations, it's a Renaissance or whether it's whoever has put this into their facilities, they're going to have to hire that company to come out. In terms of mechanical stuff, I'm going to defer to Tony, who's the obvious expert on that. I just didn't see a whole lot of mechanical stuff, Tony, but
No, I mean, everything that you saw in the system here, you're going to see on the mobile air unit or in the firehouse breathing air unit. It's tested, of course, NFPA 1990 quarterly. It's done by private sector, which is, like you said, Bobby, same as most firehouses, fire departments. They hire private sector to come in and do all the air testing of the breathing air units and SCBAs. So it's exactly the same as that. From a mechanical perspective, there's just not that much there. The air monitoring unit, every 2 years, a filter unit needs to be replaced in there. So no, there's not a lot of mechanical or maintenance that needs to be done. Just air quality and inspections.
Hey, Bobby.
Go ahead, Terry.
Obviously, the model that we're seeing with that you just demonstrated is supported by an external air support truck. But so if your current jurisdiction doesn't, let's say they don't have that resource available to them, is that a necessary part of this component, or how do you support the system? Is it supported in any other way other than that particular a mobile air truck?
Okay, so in the beginning, we did the first shot of the panel outside, and then we walked inside and we saw those 2 yellow cylinders. Now, because it's a training tower, and obviously they're not going to have the kind of demand that, because it's a training tower, you only had two bottles. But normally in a building, like a high-rise hotel, or a large storage warehouse, or a mall, or a subway platform area, they're going to have 8 or 10 bottles. And as Gary said earlier, those standing bottles, even without that external supply, are going to be able to fill 200 bottles. So 200 refills could occur before you had pressure in the system, if we understand that correctly.
There's some variances on the amount of air bottles that you're going to get. But in a typical system that Mike has seen and several other folks have seen, we might have 10 of those yellow H bottles in there. And we couple that with a air booster pump, and we'll get a good 100 refills out of an on-site storage system on demand prior to mobile air's arrival.
And so if your jurisdiction doesn't have that, or you have to wait for mutual aid to bring in the air supply unit, which is pretty common in a lot of places, not unusual, then you have a little bit of time. Well, 100 bottles is a lot of bottles.
A lot of bottles.
We've all been to a lot of jobs, and if you've gone through 100 bottles on a job, that's a big job. That's a big day. But obviously it could happen. The guy talked about terrorism, something like that. If you've got a football stadium or a high school stadium, and you think you've got a contaminated atmosphere, you could go through 100 bottles pretty quickly. To Rick's second point, when we looked at the panel, you can see that we were looking for a couple of different gases, and we're also looking for moisture. So the system is going to be looking for, just like your other air supply systems. So if you're in a system where you're picking up a lot of exhaust from the apparatus or whatever, it's going to shut down automatically. Just like when you put the system on the side of a fire station, you've got to have that air intake pipe. I believe it's 12 feet above the roof line of the building. It's been a while since I looked at the code, but it's either 12 or 20 feet for the pickup off the side of the building. But it does monitor for CO and other gases, and it will shut down automatically.
So what the fire department's been doing with that is they'll have multiple exterior connection panels, and the mobile air unit, like Chief Montgomery has here at the training facility, has a 100-foot hose reel on it. So they'll position that mobile air unit at one of several panels that will give them the best opportunity to operate that unit as they would without an air system. But at the end of the day, they're supplying the system with the air out of the mobile air unit, filtered as it would be set up in a location referenced by the fire department. Can I go back, Bobby, just one thing? Yeah, I want to make sure. Gary, yesterday, I want to speak to the amount of air cylinders. You went to a tribal community system that did have the ability to refill 200 air cylinders. And so it's just based on the demand of the 30-having jurisdiction. There are cities that require 50 SCBA refills, some that 100. and there's some that require 200 rebuilds. So it's all just a matter of design and engineering that sort system to meet the performance criteria by the fire department.
You know, a great visual just popped to mind, and this one, Ricky will appreciate this. I was just thinking, you know, we had the casino fire that we had years ago. MGM Grand, wasn't it? MGM Grand fire. Can you imagine the amount of air that would really be necessary to do a good search on a casino floor? I mean, given the layout of those places, I mean, you know, they design them intentionally so that when you get in the middle of that place, there's no straight way out of that nonsense because they want your money, and they've never gotten mine, Ricky Lasky. But Rick I gotta admit, Rick generally takes theirs. I mean, but could you imagine? And I foresee the future where, you know how we have standpipes that drop down in those buildings and locations, but right there is going to be your air supply too. So as you go through, you can keep topping off so that your bottle is always, you know, ready to go. I mean, I can't imagine why we wouldn't, you know, I can't imagine why we wouldn't demand it. And I don't know if anybody's out there from Vegas, if they could let us know how many buildings in Las Vegas have picked this up, because I could see that as a critical necessity.
Bobby, I was part of the investigation team on the MGM Grand, and it's a T-shaped building. And to go from one stairwell across to the far end, which is like 800 feet. And you can imagine breathing air and whether you're going to be able to get that full 800 feet from one stairwell to the other. And therefore, installing a system at midpoint will allow us to do far more work than running out of air supply.
Yeah, 800 feet doesn't sound like much, but fire conditions, because remember our mental image of the building is as it exists before we drag lines and things catch fire. Mike, you've been on a lot of major fires and have had some pretty close incidents, and Mike is the author of Air Management, you know, one of the original authors, the team of guys who wrote the first air management book. How do you see this tying into the whole air management philosophy that you've been the vanguard of for the last 15 years?
Nice of you to say the author of it. There was a lot of people working on it before we did. A lot of people contributed, which we're grateful for. Let me just, since, you know, lots of people to talk, let me just give it to you very simply. We spent a big chunk of our professional careers trying to get air management taken seriously in the fire service. But everything we did is predicated on the fact that you have air to actually manage. If you don't have air in your cylinder to manage, just about everything we did doesn't matter. And on floor 10, on floor 15, on floor 20, after a very strenuous effort to get up the stairs or get up the elevators, you're going to run out of air fast, and you're going to have no air to manage, and then what do? We talked about, you know, 100 bottles being needed, you know, 100 bottles available in some of these systems. That's to get you going. That's a big job, I agree. The first interstate fire, which, you know, about 30 years ago, roughly, they burned over 600 bottles of air at that fire, and it was on floor 10. The fire was on 10, extended to 15. It wasn't 30 floors up or 40 floors up. And that's a pretty doggone good fire department there in LA that knows how to fight high-rise fires. And here's the sad thing, Bobby. That was 30 years ago, roughly. If we have a high-rise fire in the city of Seattle today, or in most of the departments that are watching this webcast, you know how you're going to do air? Just like they did in LA. You're going to have hand trucks and dog-tired firefighters trying to pump bottles up to, and that was floor 10. Imagine if it's 20. Imagine if you're going down 100 feet, 200 feet into a tunnel with all the complexities that are there. So, Bobby, that's the short answer of how it impacts air management. You actually have to have the air to manage.
Well put, Michael. That was a great answer. And you're right. We're still managing air like we did it 30 years ago. It hasn't changed during my entire career. I'm looking at people who weren't born in my career. So, that's pretty interesting stuff. And you know, it's interesting because life without air stinks. And you know, when I ran the training facility for years, much like the one today, I tried to teach the recruits what that would be like. I put plastic bags over their heads with a rubber band. And, you know, 2 or 3 guys blacked out, had a little brain damage, and suddenly I'm a bad guy. But, I mean, when you think about it, you can't, the fact that we're still moving air the way we moved air probably 50 years ago, it's pretty sad. And we can do better. And this system's about doing better. And the Stoics taught us we should always be trying to do good. And the bottom line is do good. In every, if it's not doing good, why are you doing it? So talking about this system and advocating this system is about doing good. So I'm going to bring in Jimmy, who's really got a neat opportunity to take this system back to Australia, to an entire nation. So Jimmy, talk about some of the things and some of the places where you think you're going to really be able to drive this home with our brothers and sisters that are fighting fires over in Australia.
Yeah, sure.
And blast it out to that place.
Yeah, sure. Well, hopefully you can understand it because he can't sometimes, so we need a translator. But anyway, he's going to sign for me, so some of you may be able to understand. But anyway, you know, we have just equally the amount of risks over in Australia, just in a different country. We still fight the same types of fires. We've got the same types of firefighters, just in a different country. So what this is an opportunity for is to bring this level of innovation and technology internationally. And I'm from Southeast Australia, Victoria, but you know it's an opportunity to enhance our air management procedures, to be more efficient with what we do, and ultimately be safer with what we're doing. And that's something that we need to make a proactive step forward to do that, and not be reactive in waiting for something to happen. And I think definitely over in Australia we haven't had really notable major high-rise fires or major subway fires and things like that. But there's always a chance that these can happen. So let's jump in front of the game and get there. So
No, we're still good, right, guys?
Yes,
so yeah, from high-rise in Melbourne, and talking specifically in my state, but we've got train networks, we've got transport tunnels, we've got all those sort of same risks, but just in a different country.
Mike, you brought up. Mike, you said something earlier, and the amount of resources obviously to get in place for a high-rise fire, but when you make appreciable gains on something and you don't want to lose ground, and I think that goes along with what the military does, and that keeping aircraft on target is time on target without having to pull them back to refuel, and to me that's a lot of the same thing here. Is that once you make progress, you can maintain ground because you're never having to pull back, or at least pull back the amount of laborious operations that would take place to go down several floors, change out bottles, and then the other thing too is what I'm always kind of focused on is remembering your task and completing your job, and the amount of distraction that will go from getting bottles from the curbside to the 30th floor are almost immeasurable or unmeasurable, and this solves that. I like the fact that you get the solution in the hands of the people that need the solution, and that's getting it to the end point there.
Well, Bobby, when you and I were fire chiefing next to each other, in that area, and like Terry in Louisville's right next to Plano and Frisco and all the way in the system, we had air trucks coming on initial alarms pretty quick. The majority of the places, it's always an afterthought. It's always an afterthought, and then it's always, how do we get the air truck down the street? Well, let's shuttle the bottles all the way down the end of the block or whatever. Some big cities will do fine with the air unit getting there on their high-rise operations, but at the same time, this takes that out of it. If you have a place where you can't get it because you're jammed up with apparatus already on the street, whatever, you can't get it. If you've got a building that has that cascade system already, it takes care of what Terry was just talking about, Mike, earlier, that we're not going to lose any ground trying to figure out how to get bottles back and forth down the street, or trying to wiggle our air unit there, because so many people don't think big, and it's always an afterthought. And now you kind of cut that out. If you got that in that particular building, even if it wasn't a huge system inside there, it gets you enough air to do what you got to do to figure out how to get the rest of it there to charge the system again, if you had to, which I don't think you would. Like you said, I mean, you could, something huge, but I just saw Terry brought that up. It's always been air's always been an afterthought for so many people, which is so wrong. This takes care of that.
Yeah, and I think you're both spot on. I think one of the things we gotta always keep in the back of our minds that we're not talking about putting these into every residential home, and there may be a day when that happens. But if you think about the places where we got critical life safety issues, where we've got people that it may require a ton of air for us to move them, like our assisted living facilities, our nursing homes, our hospitals, our schools, where we know we've got a dramatic life hazard, we've got to advocate to get these systems in there. Because if you just think about the process that we've been describing, that we've been doing for the last 40 years, 50 years of moving bottles into and out of staging areas, that is too labor intensive and it's too slow. And now we've got a better way to do it. And I think that the careful caveat we have to tell here, and I pulled in Chuck Montgomery, who's the chief of training here for the Glendale facility, we're not talking about extending the work period for the men and women on the fire floor. We're not talking about going for longer durations of humping. And maybe, that's arguable, we can go a little bit longer. We're not talking about pushing people beyond their limits. We're talking about giving people enough air to get in and get out. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a life safety issue. And with the baby boomers aging, and being a proud member of that group of people, when my silly butt is in the nursing facility and you've got to get me out, I want you to have enough air to get me out. And that could take more than the 22 minutes you're currently carrying on your bag or the 26 minutes depending on your air consumption rate. This is the solution to that. And then there's other contaminated environments that Gary was talking about where we've always been hesitant. Now there's no excuse during overhaul. It's just so much simpler and cleaner that to me it just seems like really unbelievable opportunities. But I love the points that Rick and Terry were just illuminating. I apologize. Man, I'm going fast. Yeah, this aging thing, trust me, what do they say? The memory's always the first thing to go? That's not true, but it's close second. So, but the issue with air and air management, now we've got a solution for these critical facilities. Not just from this serious moment here. Hospitals, schools, places where we've got a lot of people. We've got to get these there. We've got to get these systems there. Because it's not a matter of if we're going to go to them, we're going to go to them. And if you're in a rural area, if you're out, and they build these things out there, they build these retreats and these idyllic locations that are somewhat outside of our first dues, as Rick said. And we need to, Rick and I do like to go to casinos for shows and such. And if you think about the casino locations, I live in the great state of Oklahoma, which is still free. And anyway, come visit. We allow everything. So if you come to our casinos, they tend to be in rural areas, and the first due are a way out. So if we have these systems, at least our initial arriving men and women are going to have 100 bottles. They know 100 bottles are waiting for them when they get there. That's air management. Now we should get Mike and Steve and the team back together, and we should reissue air management post FARS, post RescueAir.
Well, Bobby, one of the things
I think there's a whole new chapter.
One of the things you brought up is, and that comes up often, is, and you saw it probably, I know I did in Bedford Park, but all the warehouses and everything we had on the south side of Chicago was, we were always just that short of the air we needed, to finish. Being a hazmat geek, a team leader forever, was like, the guys always asked you for 5 more minutes. They didn't say give me 3 more bottles. So good incident commanders, good bosses are going to make sure that your people don't overwork. That's your job, is to make sure your people don't overwork. But we've always been there where I'm sitting there while you guys are talking, I'm going, God, I can remember so many times where either I did or the people working for me needed like 5 more minutes, 7 more minutes, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? We're not talking about overworking people. We're not talking about doing completely opposite that people have tried to get to here. We're talking about, in some cases, giving them just enough to finish the job. You know, and I'm not, all the great things we said about, you know, firefighter safety survival, giving up to get a guy out is all pertinent. I'm just sitting there thinking, how many times I've been somewhere where we needed just a little bit more, and the difference was running back down the street or somewhere else or whatever versus having this right at your fingertips. That's what, I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm good.
You also have to consider that threshold changes, that threshold changes dramatically once you introduce a mayday into the situation. So in the event, you know, unfortunately that occurs, whether it's a medical condition within the, you know, within someone that's in turnouts, or whether it's, you know, something that's caused from the event itself, that mayday changes the entire equation. So then the need for air and the need for extended work times becomes vital.
So I threw Chuck in the hot seat here for a minute because I want to talk about training. I mean, and I don't care where you go in life, everything's predicated on your training. When we talk about excellence, the relentless pursuit of excellence, that's about drill, that's about training. So walk me through the introduction of FARS, of firefighter air replenishment systems, to a recruit class here. And you've been doing it now at this facility for 10 years?
Since 2011.
Since 2011, so it's arguably 7 years now. What is the evolution? How's the adaptation? And what scenario planning? What are you doing with the folks that are coming through the Glendale facility to get them ready to use this system in practice?
Well, we kind of approach this from a multitude of levels, because there's the hands-on application of the system itself, which of course the recruits have to be introduced to during their 13 weeks that they're here at the academy. We actually have a dozen here today being trained behind us. And so introducing them to the concept along with their air management, but then there's also the other element of getting the command team very accustomed to recognizing this within a building. We have 47 of these systems within the Phoenix metro area. Having 47 of those systems, you know, it's got to be in your forethought that the building you're responding to has a likelihood. As mentioned, we have a hotel here in our first two, as well as a hospital right down the street. And then as you work closer into towards the airport, you have a number of other variety of venues. So if everyone starts to think about this system from their inception as a new firefighter all the way through their transition to engineer, to captain, to incident commander, battalion chief, deputy chief, then it just becomes part of their DNA. So it was nice of the RescueAir folks to get a system donated here at this training tower, but at the same time, we had it placed in other training centers around the valley. So at this point now, Chandler has a system, Tempe has a system, Phoenix has a system, and we also. So that's 4 systems here within the Phoenix metro area to train on. So that lends itself to the value in itself that we put this as a high priority. And as mentioned, we've been pumping water uphill for years. It's time to get what we also need, which is air.
And if you think about it, kind of an interesting terminology switch here. You know, there are no legacy buildings in terms of fuel load anymore. The last legacy fire that was fought in probably 1962. Post 1962, there has not been a legacy fire. People talk about modern fire behavior. No, it's today's fire behavior. Wizard. If you watch the movie, what was it, The Graduate, which is older than half the people I'm looking at, the big word was plastics. And that movie was dated when it came out. So we talk about legacy buildings in terms of fuel load, but that's been inaccurate for anybody fighting. The only person left fighting fire today that might have fought a legacy fire is Alan Bernasini, and he's 111. And he doesn't fight fire. Yeah, he's still going. He's in Seattle today spreading the word. So, but what's fascinating to me is a legacy building today is a building that doesn't have air. A building that doesn't have an air system is a legacy building. And because the fuel load is what it is. There's nobody out there with horsehair and cotton, for God's sakes. You know, everything is foam and polymer. So a legacy building now would be a building that I have to bring my air into and I can't refill, which is a pretty interesting concept going forward. So, and it's interesting, you know, we're all on NFPA committees and such, and when you travel with the NFPA, back in the day, you had to stay in sprinklered hotels. And it used to be a struggle to find them. And we went through that. You know, we lived that, my generation struggled with that. Today, it's hard to find a hotel that isn't sprinkled, right? So if we get behind this, it'll be hard to find a hotel that doesn't have a FARS system. It'll be hard to find a hotel that doesn't have a RescueAir system built into it so that we can fight fire, that we can respond to hazardous materials calls, even when we go into investigate. When you think about it, this and Mike is the paragon of this, and Mike and I have a beautiful mentor. Her name was Dr. Deborah Wallace. We always compliment her because she wrote a book for us in the 1990s called In the Mouth of the Dragon, where she described how fires are so toxic. She wrote it in 1990, and she details 11 fires. It's a must-read. Go to Amazon.com. It'll cost you more to mail it than to buy the book, so which is a tragedy. But think about a fire. And in its incipient stage, as quantitative decomposition is beginning, as it starts to off-gas, it's off-gassing hydrogen cyanide, hydrogen chloride, and a lot of other gases that we really can't see. So the fire service has always been worried about the thick, heavy smoke, or the smoke's not strong enough for me to put on an SCBA. That was the 70s thought, the 60s thought. Well, now the environment is really more deadly that you can't see. And it happens earlier because those late stages of combustion, those bigger gas molecules that you see in that heavy smoke, that's not nearly as deadly as that cyanide gas. And just remember, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen, the cyanide gas was so awful to die from that they don't use it in the gas chamber because it was so inhumane for killing, you know, mother rapers and father rapers. It was that bad a gas. It was that evil, right? So, but it's killing firefighters. So why are we taking that risk? Well, it was always, I don't want to run out of air. Oh, I'll go on air when it gets bad, or I'll use my cheater. Because we were worried, we weren't managing air. We were struggling to just save our air. Now with these systems, we can manage our air.
That's a great point you're making, because we just hosted not long ago smoke.org here for that sort of an update education on smoke and its toxicity. And it was an eye-opener to everyone that attended. So if you've got a chance around the country to attend one of those events, it's quite humbling to see how far away from what you feel is smoke is actually cyanide. And they bring the gases in and a number of different materials that they're burning. But it was we had about 100 folks here on a Saturday teaching them that class, and I think everyone walked away from there quite enlightened.
And Mike serves on the board of smoke.org, as well as I still consult with them. It's a great group. Sean and the team, if you want somebody from smoke.org to come out, go to smoke.org, drop a dime, and there's an old expression. When was the last time you dropped a dime like the phone? So give them a call. And we used to drop dimes at machines on the street corner. It's where I used to change into my Superman costume. And now I just strip in the street. But get a hold of them, and they'll send somebody to your facility to tell you about smoke toxicity. And it's a really serious issue.
Mike's even come out to Australia to do a presentation down there to a colleague of mine, Rick Owen. He came over and so we're trying to reach that message all throughout Australia.
We had, after that seminar was held here, we started asking them the difficult question about how many cyano kits would we actually be able to do in our first two area here within the Phoenix metro area. We found it to be so limiting that we went ahead and placed them on all the ladder trucks within the city of Glendale. They're ALS ladders, but we felt that strongly about it, and also Mesa Fire is in their second generation of cyano kits. So a community that doesn't have immediate access to one of those is, to me, is really putting the firefighters themselves and the citizenry in a position where they're not going to be able to respond to having been rescued once they're in cardiac arrest.
And so for our non-medic friends out there, the cyanide kit is basically hydroxycobalamin. It's the antidote to hydrogen cyanide poisoning. The French, the Europeans have been using it team at least since the 90s. We had the opportunity to talk with Sam Brissette, who was their brigade commander in the city of Paris. And we asked him, we said, in your studies, what's the difference between people who get cyanide or hydroxycobalamin for survival rates? He said, in FARS, we don't worry about studies. If we give you the hydroxycobalamin, you live. If we don't, you die. Because they're just arrogant idiots. But they got hydroxycobalamin. So that's important stuff. Air is important stuff. I know you've been with us for a while. We've run a bit over. We had some technical stuff. The system's really easy. There's 6 basic components. You have all of them right now, basically, except the stuff that attaches to the building. You've got air supply units. It's a simple issue to hook up a leader hose, a feeder hose, to hook into your systems. So it's not something that's going to make a massive change in anything we do, except give us more air. So it's a really critical deal. You saw how easy it was. Clyde was kind enough to hook up to the system. It's super easy to do. You saw our great friends from Glendale, so how easy it is to hook up in the stairwell. It didn't take really anything to do it. You can do it in the dark. You can do it with your eyes closed. It's basically just hooking up to your grid connection. It should be part of every drill you do, because training is what saves lives in the long run. It's just a magnificent opportunity for the fire service to really move forward and to be able to better protect the people who matter, the old and the young, the schools and the nursing homes, the people who are really counting on us.
Well,
So
Bobby,
we really hope that you got something out of it. Rick, any final questions from the team?
well, I was just going to ask before we move on too quickly here at the end here, as these shows fly by. 2 things. If somebody wanted to see the system out there, Chief, who would they contact at your place there? If somebody wanted to come and they're in their area, they're visiting. You said it, Bobby, if you're visiting Glendale, but who would they come and see, or how do they get a hold of you?
I'll be happy to tour them around the facility. We have an 80-acre site here, $50 million complex for training. And if they'd like to look at the campus right now, they can put in GRPSTC into Google, and it'll bring up our complex. And there's videos there and all kinds of stuff. Plus, they can contact me. My contact info is on the homepage. So, GRPSTC. It's Glendale Regional Public Safety Training Center.
There's also a link on the homepage right underneath this Hangout to a great webcast that was done by Mike Galliano on the whole system. He walks you through it. There's a super short article on there by Brian Rush that lays it all out for you. There's a lot of information out there. You can go to RescueAir.com. That's RescueAir.com. And there's a ton of information there for you. They'll come out wherever you are. They'll send somebody out, talk through it, tell you how it works, help you to advocate for it. Jack Murphy can help you work with the codes. I know Mike will be happy to talk to you about it. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. These are great systems. It's going to make a tremendous difference. It's nice to be part of something that's, years from now, some firefighter's going to go home because it was
Mikey?
Come see it during the week of Final Four. We're going to be hosting that in April, so we'd love to see you out here.
Mike, any closing comments, buddy?
Go ahead, boss.
Well, I would just say I concur with everything that's been said. I think what was described by Bobby is probably the key point. The system is very simple. There's not a lot of complexity to it. That is not the case with things like elevators and other building systems in high rises. They fail, and they fail when put under duress. And man, I can't think of anything more stressful or stronger than a fire or an emergency in the structure. In the first interstate fire, that building had a sprinkler system in it. It was inoperable. I can't tell you what's going to happen in your buildings. I just know that we're going to have fires in them. There's going to be systems that are going to break down, and the elevators will be the first one. And here's the reality. I know there's a lot of jib-jab going on out there about, well, if the fire's too complex, just don't go fight it. I got 30 plus years in operations. That's what I do. I'm on a truck. I'm on an engine. I go to fires. I go to emergencies. I can't speak from a chief officer perspective, but I can speak with a lot of years of going to emergencies and fires. We're going to go fight those high-rise fires. We're going to go down into those tunnels because people are in trouble and they need our help. What I'm asking for the company officers, for the chief officers, for the fire marshals, for the FMO folks, and I know you're overstressed and I know you're overworked. The forces arrayed against firefighter safety are massive. You know, you got a bunch of, you know, I don't know, Bobby probably makes more money than all of us, but, you know, you got Rick and Terry and me, you know, we're civil servants. We don't have a whole lot of money to bring a safety message. The building industry and their lobbyists, they are going to array every force imaginable to see that fire safety systems are minimal. They did it against standpipes. They did it against every system that came in to help us. My plea to you as the firefighter, as the change agent, as the chief officer listening to this, it's obvious we need air at those distant locations. We need it. We run out fast. The fires are big. There are a lot of people to save. I could go on for an hour, you know, building on Bobby's comments about how deadly the smoke is. And the key thing about the smoke, it goes to different levels. We have reverse stack effect and we have heavier smoke. We're seeing smoke in the lobbies now like we've never seen before. It's happening all the time. What do? We got to get up to 4, 5, 8, 10, 15, 20. Do we go on air in the lobby? Or do we push it and take a little bit of smoke and then end up like Captain Bowen did in Asheville, North Carolina, getting messed up in our head from breathing the smoke in the stairwell and ended up perishing in the fire? For those of you that are listening, the fire chief, you know, I'm not a fire chief. I don't know all the political stuff raining against me. I know that when you decided to be a fire chief, it was to take care of your firefighters. We need air and we need water. Standpipes, give us the water. You know, the only guy probably right now listening on the webcast that remembers the bucket brigade is probably Bobby. And he could tell you how tough it was to carry water up the stairs with buckets. The rest of us, because leaders stepped up and said we need standpipes, we have water in standpipes. What we need now are the same leaders who said we have to have standpipes. I'm sorry they cost money to put in, building owners, but if you're going to build those buildings, you're going to give our firefighters water. Rick, we also need those leaders to step up and say, politics be damned. Building owner lobbyists and all this other nonsense be damned. If you're going to build them and make a fortune building these buildings, you have to give us air and you have to give us water. If you do, we'll go in there and we'll kick ass. We'll go in there and we'll save people and we'll risk our lives. Beyond that, if we just go with status quo, it's like, oh, well, you got to understand times are tough and we don't want to harm the building owners. Give me a break. All you're doing is you continue to put your firefighters in a difficult position of having to cut corners again and again and again, and it's absolutely unsafe.
All right. Well, I think there's no better way to close than that, Ricky. Unless you got something you want to say, I'll wrap it up.
Nothing. I think it's awesome, Terry. I know Terry agrees. I'm excited about this. It's a long time coming, and incredible. I'm glad we got it all worked out on your end so they can see it, because there's nothing like seeing it. We could talk all day long, but to be able to see the guys making the hookups and, you know, I'm not trying to dumb it down, just how simple it is. Mikey said it, just how easy it is to do this, you know, to be better. You know, Bobby, you and I've talked about it. We used to talk about Mrs. Smith all the time, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Smith. And as of late, we've just thrown Mrs. Smith to the side, and Mike brought that back up perfectly, that, you know what, we're their last resort, and if we're going to be their last resort and we're going to be our best for them, that means being able to get to them and be able to take care of them and sustain that operation. So incredible concept, RescueAir.com. Take a look at it, folks.
Hey, well, we had a great time visiting. I'd like to thank our host, the Glendale Fire Department, for allowing us to be here. Chief Garrison, thank you very much, Terry. Chief Morris, thank you for joining with us. Tony, thank you, RescueAir, for allowing us to do this. Mike, as always. Terry, thank you. Ricky, always good to have you. All my friends from the Glendale Fire Department, thank you for the heavy lifting and doing all that for us. We couldn't have done it without you. It was an absolute blast being here. Hey, if you're in Hanover Park, I'll see you there tomorrow. If you're in Daytona Beach, I'll see you there Friday morning. And if you're going to the inaugural, I'll catch you in D.C. Friday night. So this is Bobby Halton. It's been great hanging out with you. And we'll see you next week on Fire Engineering's Humpday Hangout.
Mike, it was good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. Yeah, bud.
All right,